p.m.
6.
That says 05.
That's at 6 o'clock.
All right. That's 6 p.m. On May 16th, 2017. First item is Veterans Advisory Council. I believe we have Annalise Harrison sitting on that.
Awesome. Okay. I've never done this before. So I should have asked Owen, what am I supposed to do? Just kind of talk about it?
Yep.
Okay, so I was asked to research a Veterans Advisory Board and see if that's something that our community is interested in adding. I looked at about 8 different cities throughout the nation. Love Google. I just went through and Googled and just hit cities and counties and read what a Veterans Advisory Board was, because I wasn't 100% sure about that when it was first brought to me. And there were some commonalities that I found that were pretty much across the board. Every single city or county, it didn't matter. These things were common with all of them. A lot of those were that you must be a veteran to sit on the Veterans Advisory Council. The Advisory Council almost all of them had an application process, and after that, they came in with their applications. They were appointed by the mayor, and then once they were appointed, they would range from 5 to 7 members. Once they were appointed, the body themselves would then vote and choose a chair, a vice chair, a secretary. Most of them would sit on the council for a term of 2 to 3 years. It kind of varied a little bit there, but other than that, the main thing that was consistent across the board was that they had an application process and that they had to be a veteran. I was able to gain access to a few applications, and in quite a few of them, they would ask, like, if they served, if they were deployed, where did they serve, if they received any honors or medals. Sorry, my hair. Where that, what those were, and things such as that. The goals varied. Some municipalities or counties did all of these things, some just did some of them. Some of them would do some things like a Memorial Day service or a flag ceremony for Memorial Day or Veterans Day, maybe a parade in some of the larger communities. Some of them had some sort of thing or some way to honor returning veterans that were coming back from being deployed. Some cities, like Eagle Mountain, would do as much as they would have the servicemen driven home by a city fire truck. Other cities, the Veterans Council would just provide ribbons for all the neighbors around there for a few of the streets around, and they would give them all yellow ribbons and ask them to put them up. So it can be as big or as simple, as they were wanting to do it. I think it was just a way to show as a community how much they were supporting those servicemen that were men and women that were returning. A lot of them, they would have resources for the veterans. Most of them, it was actually just like a packet of information. This is where the VA is. Here's where your armory is. Here's, just the different resources that were available in their area, but it was nice to have a packet that they could give to these returning servicemen so they had it all together in one place. And then one of the main things that seemed kind of across the board was it was their responsibility to keep up on federal and state legislation and to come back and report to you as a council of how those things would affect veterans in our area. So that you could be apprised if there's anything, the council wanted to do because of that legislation or whatnot. But it was just kind of keep you informed, which to me seemed a pretty great resource to the city council, to have people that were veterans that understand what they're dealing with and really have a knowledge of how those things were going to affect people in our community.
So, Mayor, Council, looking for some direction on if and how you want this structured, so we can come back with either a resolution to form it or have it just start under the civic events as one of their committees to kind of provide advice and direction on how to do things. So,
Chris, do you want to go first? This is kind of an item you brought up.
Yeah, I don't know whether the council prefers to have it done by resolution, or I'm happy with it just being kind of housed under civic events. And everything you brought up sounds very good. The one thing, and I've talked with Owen about this a little bit, is the requirement that you must be a veteran to sit on the council. I know that may be a requirement, but I know that Eagle Mountain has some members of their council who aren't veterans. I understand the reasoning why veterans might be preferable, but I wouldn't necessarily want to limit it to that. Just, I think people that are gonna volunteer to serve on this would self-select themselves, and by requiring that they're a veteran, I mean, I'm not a veteran, but I have a vested interest in seeing that veterans are honored in our community because I'm married to one. Darcy is in the same situation. The people who want to volunteer might have a vested interest and might be related to a veteran, might be a parent of a veteran or something like that, and want to give back, but not be able to because they didn't serve specifically. So I think that's something that could be probably handled through the application and appointment process. But that's, I'm happy if everybody else feels that we should limit it to veterans. I'm fine with that too.
It's funny because it's one of those things that was general across the board. And what's the thinking behind that? I can speculate. I'd be happy to make some phone calls and find out what the thinking is behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was just one of those things that it was standard. I didn't run across anybody that didn't. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm
Right.
like, there must be a reason, but I don't know why.
So in talking to a couple of veterans in my neighborhood, and they've served other places besides just the state of Utah, they've been involved in this kind of stuff. The board members are all veterans, but there are lots of volunteers that aren't. So the actual accountable members, the board members, the council themselves are
Right.
actual veterans.
But they fill in their own group of
They're
Right.
interested in
of volunteers.
volunteering.
And that's fine.
Yeah, so the
You
committee
know,
itself.
I don't really care one way or the other. Where we're a small city, if we're limiting it to veterans are less than 1% of the population.
Yeah.
Even here in Utah, it's a small percentage, and so of that less than 1%, you've got to find the ones that are also willing to give time. And so that's my concern, is that we won't fill a board if we limit it too much, but
I think that's.
I'm okay with it. Like, as I said, I'm okay with either.
I can think of
either
6
way.
in my neighborhood, so.
Right, well, there's 5 or 6 in my neighborhood, but will any of them want to take
To
time
serve.
out to do this, where they're busy with their own lives and have their own responsibilities? But, we can go forward with it and see how it goes.
And you can always adjust, right?
But yeah, and I like the goals, talking with Eagle Mountain, especially, when I was collecting some information on this. They do have a packet or something that they give, because I think it's important that we let the veterans know that, yes, we thank them for their service and their time overseas, but we're also here for them when they're at home. We don't just, give them a parade and then kick them out the door and say, take care of yourself. So just a clearinghouse for information, I think.
I agree. When I was reading through everything, the two things that I actually liked the best was having that packet of resources that was assembled by veterans so they know what they're going to need, and also keeping you guys up to date on that legislation stuff. Those both seem to be very useful to me. I'm kind of a what's the why and what's the practicality of it, and to me that just seemed really practical.
But other than that, I just thank you for your research into this, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the rest of the council says.
Fine with the concept, like all the structures. If there's an inclination to have any limitations on the committee or board membership, I would suggest allow spouses as well. So if a spouse has a deceased other spouse, whatever partner, they would be able to serve on that. I don't see any reason to restrict them from that. And then I don't think we need to do it on a formal resolution, because then that would require noticing requirement.
So I too appreciated the research. I think a committee within civic events is probably the right approach, and it can always evolve from there. It's easier to add more than to take away. I think that a committee members should still do the application process, and I think that there needs to be a recognition still here at the council, where the mayor can still do the interviewing and bring the recommendations, just like we would a planning commission, but not as formal, but just, I think it just gives people a sense of this is important to the council, and then also, I don't know, veterans like pomp and circumstance, and so it sort of plays into that. Well, I'd say the majority, because a lot of pomp and circumstance in the military, so. But, so I think that, and then also, I would like, even as we move forward, if we do end up going to something more formal, just something on the record, I think that there needs to be where the council can still give direction. They're not an autonomous body. They would still be guided by the elected officials of the city when certain activities or things that we would want them to do, similar to what we would say, hey, we'd like to do this, or you might come and say, hey, we'd like to do this other activity. Yes, we as a council will support that kind of, same kind of feel. That's why I think it's the right place in civic events, because you sort of already understand the processes and they can fit in. Because look how effective the literacy center was there until it moved over to the library, when the library was mature enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You handled it really well for quite a while because of the understanding, getting the volunteers from the community, et cetera. And then in terms of participation in the committee, I would agree with spouse or significant other and the veteran themselves. So I think that they have a true vested interest. I wouldn't want it to be open to the general population, even though they might be well-intended. I don't think they would have the gravity or the understanding the true nature of that. And then one of the things also going forward, we have the Gold Star event that happens typically every summer. Jimmy Kawatu.
It's every other.
Every other, yeah. He's typically the one who would run that. And we would like, I don't know if you know, but he has been diagnosed
I'm
with
aware of
stage
that.
4 cancer. And so would like the Veterans Advisory Council to be involved with that. And then I'd like to, as a council, we can talk more about it, but looking at something in perpetuity that he was able, as part of that event, that his name could be associated with that event. For me, that's something I would like to see, because he's the first person to bring any kind of veterans event of substance to our city like that, and I just want to make sure that that's recognized for me personally, and we can talk about that as a group, but that's all for me at this time. Thank you.
To Michael's point about, direction from council, in my discussions with the mayor, he talked about having one of us assigned as a liaison, kind of like Stephen serves as the liaison to the library board and something like that. Yeah, civic
City
events.
celebration.
So something like that, so that the council could provide input through that.
I too think it's a great idea, especially with the association we have with the military in this area. I thought that the wives of the veterans would be especially important to be a part of it, since they're the ones that are left behind and know what it's like, and what the needs of the veteran's family are, especially when someone's overseas, things on that order. I'd like to see a resolution by the council so that there's full recognition of the Veterans Advisory Council. I like the idea of associating it with the civic events where it'd be handled well. And again, the goals and whatnot, once the council is organized, they'll be able to go city to city and find out what really works, what's really needed, and to glean from there. But great idea, full support.
Okay, Councilwoman Barge.
Thank you. The only other comments that I had is that I think that it's very appropriate, like the rest of the council, that it's under the civic events. I think that it's going to be phenomenal when we have our, I think we were calling it Patriot Park, our sports complex, open and running, and we can have Veterans Memorial events and Veterans and Memorial Day events there. I think that'll be a fantastic addition to our city, and I think that the appropriate council will be able to decide, what events we want to participate in and what we don't, and bring that back to the council.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like too, is we do often get approached by people that have a passion for something, and it's hard because, yeah, we're all patriotic, right? We were raised to appreciate it, and so you want to do everything, but we can't. And so I think this council will provide kind of that needed resource to say, let's do this, but I think it's okay if we don't do this time, and I don't know, it's a little more respected because they're the ones that have put their lives on the line for our freedoms to celebrate those things. And so I think that actually could be really beneficial to the community also.
One other thing, sorry, Mayor, Councilwoman Bartz's comment about Patriot Park and the memorial there reminded me that one of the duties or the goals that I thought might be appropriate, and I'd like the council weigh in on this, would be not the planning of the monument, but we talked about maybe having it go forward where every 5 years we add new names to the monument as more veterans have served in our city, and that this council could oversee that, rather than having to have city staff spend time, vetting the names. We could have them.
And it would give the families a place where they could say, hey, my relative has served, or this happened, and they could have a place to submit that for future times. Yeah.
Nope, thank you. We have the direction we need. So.
Look at Owen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, gold star.
Okay, Heron Hills Park Concept Plan.
We're at the phase that has the park next to the lake in it, and so I might need okay. So here's where the park's located in phase, this is Plat C of the Heron Hills development. So what you're seeing is the whole thing, and then the blue circle or the blue oval is generally where the park is. And then here's the preliminary plat. So parcel A is the park that we're talking about in this discussion. This was, there's been actually a handful of work sessions over the last couple of years about this particular development, and then this park as well. The Heron Hills, here's the concept plan right now. So what you're seeing is, so we changed directions from the preliminary plat. We just, north is, I don't know, I guess it's to your right. So you've got the Utah Lake out here. This area is designated wetlands that have to be preserved, and then we talked about a beach area in this development. So you're seeing that here. One of the discussions topics is related to sand. So the kind of typical California beach sand that you see would be really expensive to put here in Saratoga Springs, and then it would also blow away really easily and would have high replacement costs. So we're discussing a more coarse sand that wouldn't have as many issues and would possibly be less costly and hopefully stick around longer. And then the picnic areas that you see near the beach, those weren't on any previous plan, so those are also up for discussion. This location will have a non-motorized launch into the lake, and that's already been graded, so it's kind of cool. Our Parks Committee went out and looked at that. It's nice to see the work that's going on so far. One of the questions is whether or not this parking lot that's proposed is big enough and also could handle, if a vehicle was pulling a trailer with canoes or kayaks or things like that. And then there's a list of items in the in the memo about what we could discuss here. The applicant's tentative budget is proposed, so what we agreed to with this park is that they would spend $3.33 a square foot, and then there's parameters of what that would include. That would include half of the design cost. It would include permits with Army Corps. And so they would spend up to their max budget, and then the city would do the rest. And so what their draft budget has includes, their draft budget doesn't include the pavilion or the parking lot, but it includes the other items that you're seeing there, and then it includes hydro seeding, the open area, but it doesn't include, well, it also includes some trees. So the draft budget gets them pretty far, but there would still be a remaining obligation for the city, and obviously we would, the council would have to decide when to fund that. So the items for discussion that we need additional feedback on as we program this park, it's just not moving, hold on. I need to get the other one, I'm too far away, but, oh, okay. Okay, so the picnic areas, like I said, they weren't shown before, so we need to discuss whether or not we want those included in the park design. We may need more parking, as I mentioned. We might be able to program volleyball events here. We may need some stalls for vehicles pulling trailers. A restroom might be appropriate at this location, depending on the amount of activities going on there, and then the type of sand, as I mentioned. And then, as shown on the plan, the beach area is not right up against the lake because of the requirement to preserve wetlands. However, that will also keep the sand from being washed away all the time. And it'll still be a really fun area to play and to have volleyball, so we're looking for feedback on this, and we'll forward that to the applicant, and then we'll continue with the final design.
Sarah, can I ask some clarifications on some of the comments that you made? So you mentioned that the parking lot's not included, and yet when you go through the actual list of items, it actually has the 4 inches of asphalt and the 8-inch, 4 inches of asphalt and the 8-inch base, plus the fine grading and plus the fill into the parking. So it's included in those line items.
Oh, okay.
It's just not the greater parking lot. I think the thought is a bigger parking lot, and that's not shown.
Is that?
I may have just misunderstood when I looked at the draft. So, yeah, well, and then, yeah, it's included.
What we need to.
Yeah, if we want to make it bigger, obviously that's not included, so.
Okay.
Or
And
that's not on
then with
this.
those little picnic pavilion things that they're talking about, is that included in what they're considering the beach area, or is that not? I don't see that line itemed out. So is that, when we discuss,
Yeah,
are we just discussing whether or not we want to include that in the concept?
Right, do we want to include those picnic areas in the final design, knowing that that might be something the city might end up funding?
Those 5 little red squares are not funded.
Right.
Okay, you want to go?
Sure.
You have other questions?
Yeah. It jumped. Okay, so questions that I have on this are, we had talked about that, I'm going to call it mini dredging, that they were doing to remove the phragmite out of the area. And I know the water levels came up too quickly for them to finish our side. Did they finish their part of the project? Is their permit still active? Has their permit expired?
Yeah, they did. They finished their portion, and they said if, depending on water levels, they could possibly do it in the winter in January, before the permit that they have expires. So it's still a possibility that they could do it on the city area.
So as I'm looking at the list of the items that they've got on their budget, they have, where did I see that? Sorry. The strip and stockpile phragmite and mud, the relocate stockpile out of wetlands. So that's all included in those costs?
It's not included in this draft, so that would have to be
I mean, it's on their list. I mean, you've got you've got 6,900, 9,600, and 12,800 on their list. It's the second, it's item
Okay.
5, 6, and 7.
I'm going to have a hard time answering those questions. I had hoped they would be here, but they weren't able to make it. But we could probably discuss it more when we could probably have a meeting with them and discuss it more, because I'm not sure if that item includes what was already been done, or if it includes additional work that we talked about, because they did already do a certain level of clearing in there. But I don't know if it includes the additional areas that we took photos of.
Sarah, would it be better if we just moved this until they were able to meet with us in person?
On perhaps some of the questions, I think, obviously they want to continue to be moving forward. I haven't met with SLR recently, so Sarah, do you have an opinion on that? Would they prefer to get direction so that they can continue moving forward now with the final plan? Or do you think they would want to have it tabled? If they would want it tabled until the 30th?
I think he was hoping he would be able to get feedback without having to come, so.
It is hard, we don't know what they want us to pay for.
Because- Yeah, because in our staff report, it says, for example, the parking lot's not part of it, but then in the line items that it says that it is part of it, and then do we want to talk about possibly not asphalting it and instead increasing the size of it so we can actually have enough room for parking? I mean, there's several.
For convenience, if we had just a couple council members meet with them, so he can make that, and then discuss it as a council on our 30th session with recommendation
That would
from
be
those.
fine.
That work?
I'm okay with that.
Can I just make a few things?
Sure.
With that group, whoever meets with them, I'm supportive of that concept. My thing is, I'm thinking of the fiscal impact, not even the amenities, like, we're spending an awful lot of money on a ballpark, and then other money is coming out of our excess funds for another item, just at another time. I don't know, are we committed to doing these now with him? I mean, that would be one of the questions, how soon do we have to do it?
But he just wants to know what he needs to do and pay for, because he's got to pay for over $500,000 worth of amenities here.
Right.
So that's all he wants to know. We don't have to do anything past that.
My only fear is that if he keeps spending money on design, then we're whittling away with the actual amenities that we're going to get.
Absolutely.
Because that's part of the cost as well.
And I'm just saying, like, if we instruct him to do certain things, I think naturally we're gonna have to do certain things with it, and I don't know that we have a capacity in that budget to do that with other things that are coming up. That's one of my considerations I'd request.
We have 2 people or 3 that would want to meet with them.
I'm happy to meet. Whether I meet with them or not, my question is the sand. I've played sand volleyball for the majority of my life, and depending on what he means by coarse sand, because I've been to some courts where they put coarse sand, where it's, you come out bleeding. So I would want to see samples, because, it's not going to get used if we're using the garbage
The
sand.
Saratoga Springs HOA has sand volleyball that works very well, and that sand has lasted quite a long time, and it's not too bad. So I think that would be,
I'm sure there's a middle ground, but I mean, I've been to places where it's like,
Yeah, we don't rocks.
kitty litter.
Yeah.
And it's
So I
really
played on it,
large
yeah.
piece, it is, it's
Yeah.
like large pieces of chunks of gravel.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
And at the same time, we don't need to have the sand that needs
Yeah,
imports.
we don't need
spring.
silver strand either,
never
so.
imported it.
I would suggest that it will get used by the cats of the neighborhood regardless of what kind of sand we use, so.
What if
You know,
we
the
get,
mountain cats?
what if we get general feedback on these topics, and then we can just discuss, and then we can have a small group to discuss the budget with the applicant?
So
Who's the small group would be my question.
It would be Chris and Shelley both volunteer, unless the council has any other.
I'm fine with that. I just wanted to point out a couple things, though, real quick, if I could,
Yeah.
for the people who are going to be going.
Oh, I was just going to run through real quick and say for picnic areas, I don't mind putting those on there because literally he drew squares and it's done. We don't have to add anything, we don't have to change anything. As far as more parking, that's something that we could do later on down the road. We don't necessarily, and restriping is pretty easy if we want to change the striping on stuff.
Well, so the reason that we need feedback on the parking size now is because it impacts the grading, and they're working on the grading now, and so if, for the drainage and flow and the elevation of the parking lot compared to other things, we would want to have a general size figured out for the final design. So if we want it to be large, even if we don't pave the whole thing now, we want that in the final design.
We definitely would want that, I would think, especially if we want to do sand volleyball at all, because you look at the parking stalls there, that's not even sufficient for the 2 volleyball courts that are there, much less anybody else using it, so.
I think as part of the parking, you also need to, like, looking at the picture, they have like an island down the road, you need to have some extra long
Trailer.
trailer spots, because I'm gonna tell my canoe down there and put it in.
Mine goes on top of your
Most canoes go on top.
Unless you're the Boy Scouts with 14 at once.
So.
Who wants to tow a trailer?
Well, it's not motorized, so you can.
And with regard to the $6,000 for Phragmites, I think we have a burn crew in
No, 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 no.
You don't want to burn, he's just making fun of the fact that it was burning over by the site.
Yeah, I know. Please, yeah. So that's one thing I actually had a question on, is they mentioned 2 different methods of removal of stuff, and one of them included burning. They cannot burn the Phragmite. They will set it to seed, and we will be fighting with it forever.
They probably have that figured out through their permit, but I'll pass that on.
Yeah, you'd hope, but
Oh, yeah.
what else did we miss?
Oops. Sorry, this is going backwards. Okay, so the picnic areas, parking for vehicles and trailers, restroom. Do we see a need for a restroom at this location?
Is that? Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, we're talking about what we want in the final design, so not necessarily, so whatever doesn't occur, so we can have the final design and it can happen in stages, and he'll build until his funds are exhausted, and then the city would have to.
What kind of infrastructure can we put in now that's not terribly costly, but would allow us to go back and put a restroom in later? Is that something we should be doing now, stubbing?
So he's already paved, and I don't think that we pulled any water connections in. We probably could get them in behind sidewalk. Obviously, stubbing the utilities in would be great. The sewer line, I believe, runs at the bottom of the property, and so we could connect into that fairly easily. It's really, water, power, and sewer is kind of the
And
big
that's at
issue.
the curb, right, at the street side?
The water is at the street side, and then the sewer is along the.
Easement.
Yeah, in the easement right along the lake shore. I would think if you want these items, then, plan for them, and then we've got a master plan that we can build to at some point in the future. I think that the very wise comments on expanding the parking lot size, so he can grade for that now, I think that's a really good option. Obviously, just like any park, the ability to build it at our pace in the future is, I think, what Councilmember Wilden was pointing to earlier. It may be a while, it may be a decade or more until we come back and build some of these improvements, but there are things that we would like to contemplate. I would suggest, though, anytime you get a beach area or you get a family going to do something like that for a long period of time, a restroom would be, and I would suggest maybe just 2,
Would porta potties be available until, because of huge expensive on restrooms?
Yeah, no, and I'm suggesting that, there might be other ways that we could look at restrooms in the future. For example, pick up, one of the state prefab, facilities or something. Just as an idea, you may not like that. I'm just suggesting that there may be other ways that we can go about doing it into the future.
I still had mine, so. Okay. All right. I think that absolutely put all of the little picnic areas, but I think that 3 probably would be enough, but just putting a blue square, 5 of them, isn't going to hurt us to have 5, and then we can always reduce it. I think that we should absolutely do as much parking as possible. We're always on a shortage at our parks, and if we want Heston to have any kind of an event here, we won't be able to. He could always bring in porta potties for an event in the meantime, Bud, like to your point, if we're having a big tournament, they can bring those in for that tournament. I think that absolutely this is a great amenity. In terms of parking for trailers, I would rather it just be the middle section where you can park a trailer, or it can be 2. It could be 2 people parking, or they, so you can make it so that it's striped different. So having that median down that, you can make that so people can pull through and then pull out. Or people can double park. And you know what? If they show up and there's no place to park with the trailer because everyone's using all those spots, first come, first serve. We do that at other places as well. And then I think that my other question is lighting. Is there any street lights in this area? Parking lights or anything like that? Have they pulled any electricity into this space?
We haven't. We haven't so far, so.
Kind of a concern there. I would think that you would want some kind of lighting of some sort, even if it's low.
Are you thinking?
People coming in at the night, trying to get out.
Beach area?
Well, and most mainly the parking area, the pavilion area, and then some kind of lighting maybe down to the beach, like maybe like the little,
Bollards.
the bollards, thanks. Just, again, if this is, if we want to make it accessible, people go out and they'll be out there till 8:30, 9 o'clock, they lose track of time, they're coming in, it's dark.
At least down to the edge, I mean, you can't really pass
Just probably along the trail,
probably along the trail.
like for bollards along the trail.
Host a volleyball events, you might even want to put lighting on the courts.
Well, I was leading to the fact that at least having power there, you can plug in and put in portable.
And that's the thing, is if you put in conduit now, then it's easy.
Yep. So talk to them about that, the conduit.
Okay,
we can
conduit now.
Bring in power and lights later, but, I think it never hurts to have that orangey light down there, even though it's not super bright, but.
Okay, and then as far as parking, I just quickly counted, so right now they have, looks like 23 stalls, and so how many trailer stalls and how many parking stalls do we want to recommend in the final design?
I think work it out with them, what the space allows, would be
Okay.
my advice. And then, you get to live by a park, people park on the street next to the park. And so there is still some more on-street parking near this as well. So get as much as you can without going way, obviously, to the left.
Public?
Public, yeah, there's no. So those are just, but I would just maybe talk to them and see what you can fit in this space without going on the other side of the pavilion.
So the only comment I would say is obviously as we work with the applicant on this, we're going to want to be very sensitive. Obviously, he's going to want the park to somewhat of a finished state for, the initial development, so that it's an amenity. It's not just, native ground or something like that. So I think that there is an expectation. I haven't read the agreement for a long time, but that's something that we definitely are going to want to look into as part of that, because I know we did, commit to participate with him as part of this, so.
Okay,
I would just look to Shalice and you, Mark, to bring something along with that as our financial capacity to handle this for whatever would need to be done immediately.
any other comments? Okay, so do you want to see it back on the 30th or no? And we're just going to do a small group from here? Say that again?
So if he's in a hurry.
Okay. Okay, great, sounds good, thank you.
Anybody want to review anything before we start the agenda?
I have no items today.
Okay. Yep.
I did already.
Okay, we'll adjourn to the policy session. We'll call the meeting to order on Thursday, May 16th, 2017 at 6:38 PM. Present tonight is Councilman Porter, Councilman Wilden, Councilman McComber, Councilman Podeska, and Councilwoman Barch. We have a quorum. I've asked Councilman McComber to lead us in our invocation and Councilman Wilden to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we come together as a city this day, we're truly grateful for the many blessings that Thou hast given us. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to live in the city of Saratoga Springs, in this beautiful valley. Heavenly Father, we are grateful for the opportunity that we have to come together as free people to discuss our own futures and our own needs and govern ourselves. Heavenly Father, please bless us that we'll be able to have Thy Spirit to be with us as we make decisions that affect the residents today and into the many years future. Heavenly Father, we love Thee and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please rise and repeat the pledge with me.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments, and please try and limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're here for the public hearing on the adoption of the fiscal year 2017-2018 final budget, please save your comments for that. Is anybody here for public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public input. We have a presentation of the 2016 Trust Accountability Program TAP Award.
You made it just in time.
Second time in a row now, and they've taken part in this program that we have. For those that don't know, with the Trust, what we do, we provide insurance products for several cities and towns around the county, over 500 in fact. And Saratoga Springs has done a great job of doing this again, taking part in this. What this is our program that we allows for people to prevent losses and claims, and there's some really good things that come out of that. Part of that is having an active safety committee, which the city does. I know Mark Christensen and Allison Cowder did a great job here this past year in doing that, and some good things came from that. So the safety committee, preventing accidents and losses, preventing sewer backups, having best practices for those things, looking at motor vehicle records and preventing issues with driver's licenses with the city employees. And so there's a lot of good things that come out of it, some really good things there. And so with this comes an award that we like to present. We like to recognize those people that take part in this, because we found that of all the cities and towns that do this, we have about 90 that participated in it this past year. And out of those 90, on average, they significantly have fewer losses and claims than do the others. And so we consider that a win-win for all organizations. Some really good things that go along with that. And so we'd like to recognize the city for a job well done this past year on this. So I'll leave you with this award today. And also with this comes a 5% check for the cost of your liability premium, which was sent back this year earlier for $5,422. So some money comes along with the award as well, which is really nice.
That's great.
And also along with this comes discounts on workers' compensation and other premiums there. So some really good things. Congratulations, and I'll leave this award with you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Too much. Okay. Reports. Does any of the council have reports?
I've got one.
No?
All right. Oh, I do.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
Along with Councilwoman Barch and some city staff, I was able to attend the West Traverse Community Partnership. It's, I guess, the successor to the JLIS. And it was, I think, a very good meeting. It was a good time to get together with the cities that surround Camp Williams and talk about some of the issues. As part of that, Mark and I were able to start some discussions about the possibility of getting some of the ACUB funding to preserve a buffer zone around Camp Williams that would be mutually beneficial to property owners as well as the city and the camp. And was also able to talk to the Base XO about a possibility. Part of the sports complex discussion we had talked about as part of that, possibly having some military hardware, decommissioned military hardware at the park. And so I talked with the Base XO, and she's going to look into see if that's a possibility of finding something like that. So. She would be cool. It would be. Okay, Councilman Wilden, do you have anything? I do not. Yeah, Councilman Comber?
Just to point out, and for those watching online too, 3 weeks are splash days, so I would encourage you guys to participate. They've done a great job. This is our 20th anniversary. We're no longer a teenager, and we've got some great events planned for that week, starting June 5th all the way through the 10th. So check it out. You'll be getting something in the mail with all the events.
Perfect. Councilman Podeska?
Just registered to attend the Lake Summit annual report, and so I'll report when I have to come back from it.
Okay. Councilwoman Barch?
I won't be attending that because I have something else going on, so. As far as messages from our residents, first, a great big thank you. I don't know how many of you know or not, but there was an incident at Neptune with one of the pieces of play equipment, and our staff was super responsive and just garnered an amazing amount of gratitude among the neighborhood. the residents in the neighborhood. So thank you, and please pass that on again, Mark. And then also, along with Splash Days coming up, we also have the Utah Lake Festival, which is June 3rd, and that goes from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. That's the Saturday just before Splash Days. Really a lot of fun, free. Get there early for easier parking, but there's lots of parking. They have all kinds of rides as far as like little boat rides they take you out on. The paddleboard, Utah paddle boards that came in and talked to us a little bit. They usually give demo rides, things like that. There's a huge, I can't remember how long it is, some 40-foot long fish that they usually carve out of sand. It's really fun for the kids to look at, and they can learn about fishing, and they've got all kinds of booths there also. So along with all the fun things that are happening at Splash Days, we've also got the Utah Lake Festival coming up.
You start off Splash Days with the Utah.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, just a second, Councilman Willen has one more.
Well, when Shelley recognized staff, it reminded me, a resident contacted us, the canal for, behind Aspen Hills was filling up, and George was out there like within 15 minutes of us being notified and took care of it, so.
The residents were quite pleased.
I think that was, tell him thank you, that on a Friday, was it Friday night, Saturday night? Weekend night, 10:30, he was out there in 15 minutes, so.
George got out there right away, and then several of our other staff members got out, and they were out for quite a while getting the canal running. It's always a challenge dealing with the canal companies because we're hopeful that they're going to let us know ahead of time so that we can be staged, and instead that was the message. We weren't expecting them to turn it on because they had said they weren't going to be turning it on yet, so always a surprise, so thank you, and we appreciate that, and we'll certainly pass those accolades on to our staff.
Perfect. Mark?
Yeah, I guess it was getting pretty close to overflowing.
It was,
Almost full, almost empty, you know, we'll see. The one thing that I wanted to bring to the council is with Spencer leaving the city, we are in need of appointing someone to the sewer district. His recommendation was...
Yes?
His recommendation that it be probably myself, Owen, or Jeremy. And so we still haven't quite figured out who drew the short straw to be so graced to hang out at the sewer district. So if it's okay with the council, I'll make a nomination with the mayor and have that for you on the 30th for an appointment, an official appointment on that particular one.
We'll have a voluntold opportunity.
It's one of those interesting, challenging ones because,
Stay on top of it.
yeah, it requires a little bit of technical
technical
spin on it,
knowledge,
so.
but then also the ability to put them back in their place and tell them they don't need a ginormous raise every year.
Right.
Jeremy?
You know, Kevin already puts up with a lot of crap, so he might be good.
Unfortunately, he might be adding to the effluent, that's all I'm saying.
Is the attorney. Okay. Okay, and then we have the special meeting on May 30th. Okay. There's been a request to move number 8, Quick Quack, up before we get into other items.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting, we'll start with the public hearing.
They had asked to move up because they have to be in South Jordan at 7:30. So as soon as they get here, will you let us know?
Okay. Public hearing, the adoption of fiscal year 2017-2018.
Are you Quickie Quack?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh.
You're up.
Are we up?
Because you said you had to be in South Jordan.
Wow, that was quick, yes. Thank you.
So, Kara's not in here, but that's fine. We'll just, so, hold on. So, Quick Quack, the main reason that you're seeing it, because in this particular development, the site plan is a staff approval. However, the conditional use permit was a planning commission approval, and then our code requires outdoor uses to be approved by the city council. And so all of the, I know, so it's a little bit of a unique situation with this particular one where it's going for different things. So they have vacuums outside, which are their outdoor uses. Anyhow, these are their elevations. We've given them comments on their color scheme that it needs to be but it needs to, it needs to be consistent. It needs to be a little bit more in line with the surrounding development. So the yellow is what they love, and you see that on their other buildings. And then this one in the bottom corner is the subdued color palette that's at another location, and that's what we're recommending. I don't believe there's any concerns with that. The yellow circles that you see there are actually, or sorry, the orange circles that you're seeing there are garbage bins. So if you'd like to comment on that, feel free to comment to do so. And then, let's see, this is the recommendation.
Okay. Is there any, you want to add anything to that before we start?
Glad to be here.
Okay.
We're here now.
Councilwoman Barch?
Vacuums are commonly outside for car washes. I have no problem with
Just in the
that,
commercial area.
especially in a commercial area. It is what it is, so I definitely the subdued tones, please. That's much preferable. And I assume with the subdued tones, a subdued garbage can would come in as well.
How they come from the manufacturer, so.
I can go down to Walmart and get you some. They're a little bit more subdued than that. Just saying. Work on that, please. That's, yeah, it's a little bright. The development is, I mean, you've seen it and how it's coming in, and it's beautiful, and they're doing great jobs. So I think that you can make it work and go for it.
Okay. Councilwoman Podeska?
Could you put those images back up? This is critical. The lower right-hand image of a Quick Quack seems like it'd be most in keeping with what's happening on Pioneer Crossing. Do you know if the design has been finalized?
No, we're still working there on that, so. Obviously the green, that's their brand, that's, everybody recognizes them, but I've done that, bottom right corner, that's our newest Highland location.
Yeah. That with the muted decor of Pioneer Crossing, and there's more to come, that we'd like it to blend in a little better. We'll know that you're there, everyone will drive past.
We'll see the duck. The
Yeah.
duck's still bright yellow.
And vacuums are part of the whole picture, no problem.
Okay. Councilman Conver?
I'm fine with the outdoor use of the vacuums. The bollards, I actually drove by your, is it the Orem location by the Costco there? And those garbage cans are too small, and there was garbage flying everywhere. There was garbage all over the road, all over the grasses around there. I'm just worried because we don't have businesses to the south, that is going to just end up being full of garbage on the other side of Pioneer Crossing. So I think that two things. One, I'd like to see garbages that have a lid. Garbage cans that, no, they don't. These bollards are just like a big orange thing. And the garbage can is super small, like the garbage can's like this, and then this is all just decorative. So I really would like to see, because the garbage cans, I went actually looked in there, and people are probably thinking, what is this guy doing? Like looking through garbage. So
He brought some home with him, too.
because of the nature of the fact that lots of people are dumping all the garbage out of their car, they fill up quickly. So we do have ordinances that you have to keep your garbage under control. And I'm just telling you right now, with the wind, I will be going on our app and citing them constantly, and they don't want that. Because one of the things that Saratoga Springs prides ourselves in is that we don't have a lot of garbage flying around, and this is a big concern for me. I just want to make sure that they meet the sign ordinance, because those signs look really big in terms of their square footage, and especially the ones on the side are really large. And so obviously we have our sign ordinances. Our color, we can tell you the colors because we do have in our ordinances, it has to be similar in nature. We just got a condo complex and we had to make them change because it was outside of their neighboring. So we normally don't tell people what they can and can't do unless you can't talk the rest and it's too late now, all the rest of the buildings in the same area to have that same color scheme. I get that you want to have attention. You are going to have attention being a car wash right on Pioneer Crossing, so you're not going to have a problem getting your name out there. And then in terms of the covered areas for where they do the vacuuming, are you doing those canopy things? Okay. Are they solid or are they like a fabric? because I've seen both versions, so just wanted to make sure because we get a lot of wind out here. That's it, thank you.
Councilman Wilden?
Fine with the vacuums, agree on the garbage cans, bigger, et cetera, and lower right-hand corner design.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
I'll just repeat everything that Councilman Wilden said.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the cliff notes on that.
I wanted to add, just for the applicant, we've had full garbage cans move down the street. Yeah, from the wind, so it is a big deal here.
My full garbage can disappeared, and all of a sudden I found it like
Want to be a good
3-4
neighbor.
houses away.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that we deem car wash vacuums to be a customary use of and appropriately conducted in the open of this conditional use permit,
With the other direction that we gave,
with the other direction that we gave.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a first from Councilwoman Barch, a second from Councilwoman McComber. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call. Councilwoman Barch?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We want to do number 7? Perfect.
Thank you very much.
I wasn't sure if you were giving me the bird or trying to tell me.
Terrible, terrible.
Okay.
7, animal hospital.
Perfect.
Right. Thank you. The Saratoga Springs Animal Hospital is located on Exchange Drive. And it is to the northwest of the Walmart and directly to the west from the town storage facility. It is located in the regional commercial zone where it is an allowed use. Now, this site plan is for a 5,500 square foot animal hospital. This requires 22 parking stalls, and they are currently providing 30 in their site plan. Sufficient space is provided for a future building to be built immediately to the south, and that will be 4,500 square feet in size is the current plan. And additional parking is going to be included in that area, and they've left area for that to occur in the future. And interconnection is provided to the west in anticipation of future development that will occur to the west of this area. Minimum landscaping and planting requirements are being exceeded with this project, and the area where the future building will be is also being landscaped and maintained with native grasses, and will stay that way until the second building is constructed. These are the elevations for the building. Mechanical equipment won't be visible. It's all housed within the building. And color rendering here shows the color scheme that they're using three different materials on the building. Now, their monument sign structure is meeting code requirements. And these are the code criteria. The site plan complies with conditions that are listed in the staff report. Staff has reviewed the application and recommends that the City Council hold a public meeting, discuss the application, and vote to approve this application with conditions. And these are the conditions that are found in the staff report. And alternatives include continuance and denial. And this is a public meeting, and no public comment has been received to this point, and the applicant is present to help with answering any questions.
Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to add before the council starts discussion? No. Okay. Councilman Wilden is requested for shot at it.
I think the only interesting point on here, I wouldn't say interesting, strange, is we're saying that you need to reduce your parking. So I'm going to interpret the code of 1,000-foot increments. And not often do I get to use my background as a CPA, but as a CPA, we round to the nearest thousands. That gets you to 6,000, and I'm being serious. You get to 6,000, you get the 30 stalls, you don't need to change it there. I'm going to interpret the code, and so I'd prefer that we strip that condition. And I don't have any other comments. So.
Okay, Councilman McComber?
I think this is a great need for the community. I think lots of pets and lots of demand. I think I mentioned to a few residents and they were really excited about this project. I would support the rounding efforts of our CPA city council member. And you can also then use, in the future of another building, I would be okay, just so you know, you'd be able to use that excess as a shared parking with that building as well. So when you're trying to get the parking, as long as both buildings then meet the parking for all the square footage in that area, that would be fine. I think that you understand the value of parking, and I'm not going to change that. I do appreciate the looking at the, making sure the ADA meets standards. That was the only other thing, and I appreciate that condition. So if we can remove the one condition, then I'd be fine with it.
Okay, Councilman Porter?
I agree with everything that's been said so far. I would just also like to maybe have a discussion in future as to why we have a maximum parking.
You don't want to use.
I understand that, but I think this has shown me that perhaps we need to revisit the number that we're using, or work it for smaller uses or something, because it seems we have parking issues in our city, and it seems like limiting ourselves is not the right way to go.
In this way,
I realize we don't want to.
In this way, they're trying to put their parking for their next building. They're just kidding, because it made sense, so that's why. I mean, I'm
interested in at least revisiting it and see if we can make it
You
better.
go to the district with a huge parking between the movie theater and the stores, they regret that they don't have more protection to that heat island. It gets very hot. Yeah, that's why.
Okay, Councilwoman Barch?
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with the parking. Also, it makes it easier for you to take care of your lot and not have to cut into it later, restripe it, whatever else. So I'm fine with that. My only question was actually on the signage. So within our staff report, it talks about it being a shared monument sign, but yet size-wise, it's not really a shared monument size. So are you going to add on to that later? Or are you just going to leave it the way it is?
That was not the intent.
Okay.
And if and when another building is built, I would expect that we somehow place another monument within code requirements that would look appropriate, or replace it with something that would address both. I've not indicated or felt that we were ever going to add to what's already there, so.
Okay, so then my comment on that is the location of the monument is not near the drive entrance, and I kind of foresee in the future perhaps a second drive entrance into another parking lot. That'd be the only drive entrance.
That's the only one that's allowed by code. We kind of addressed that because of the distance between,
Okay.
et cetera. So that's the only drive entrance that currently would be allowed.
So I might make the comment then that you might want to place your monument sign as close as you can to that entrance, only so that in the future you might be able to get another sign down at the other end for the other use if you want to do a second monument sign.
Yeah, you get one every 100 feet, so I don't know how wide your site is, but we'll want to make sure you're.
So just look at
gonna have
that, but
room
other
for
than that,
two.
I'm okay with it. I just want to make sure that you're not going to shoot yourself in the foot for the future. Yeah.
I will. It was actually placed close to the entrance originally, and it violated something, and so it got moved.
Okay.
Site triangle.
Site triangle, okay.
I
So what I'd like to say then as a condition to change one of the conditions is just to make sure that he works with staff so that they can get the best sign placement possible and leave it to staff and our applicant.
If we want to put it as a condition, really, it's his choice if he wants to put a sign.
Right, but
Yeah.
because we're approving the plan, it would have to come back to us. So I want to make sure that it doesn't have to come back to us.
Staff?
Yeah,
Just delegated.
so just delegate it to staff.
So on that same note, and Sarah, if you could tackle this one for me, I want to make this as easy as possible for the applicant.
Yes.
If they change the monument sign in the future, is that a staff approval, or does it have to come back to the planning commission and the city council?
Well, it's part of the site plan approval, so we could do a minor site plan amendment, which could be a staff approval.
So, yeah, I would suggest that you just wrap that up so that when the sign issue comes up, they don't have to go through the process again.
That we consider it a minor adjustment, okay.
Councilman Podeska?
Well, I too think animal hospital, a great idea, good location. Saratoga Springs has 30,000 people and probably 50,000 dogs. Our code enforcer, for years, the greatest crime level in Saratoga Springs was dogs loose.
Dogs at large.
And, which is good, and we don't have any other real crime. But, yeah, and I was especially pleased when I enlarged the image and was able to see that you have an outside enclosure for exercise and things on that order. But again, something that the city really needs, and we really appreciate you selecting us for your location. We'll try to make you welcome.
Thank you.
Let us know when you have your opening, too.
Yeah, please.
Will do.
I was just going to ask, so this is kind of my background a little bit. Are you small animal exotic, any large?
Mostly small.
Okay, I
I
just wondered.
retired from large, so.
Retired from large. Okay, very good. I just wondered, we have, some equestrian uses around here, and I didn't know if you did that, like farm call kind of stuff or not.
What?
So, okay.
Would you treat a large animal like the mayor at least? I wouldn't comment.
I'm not afraid of any species.
You can stay.
It's only on a full moon, we got to put Councilman Wilden. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the Saratoga Springs Animal Hospital site plan located on parcel as shown in the exhibits with findings and conditions stated in the staff report dated May 16th of 2017, removing the maximum parking requirement and allowing the 30 stalls shown, and also working with staff for the best sign placement, delegating that to staff, and also saying that it will be a minor site plan amendment if you come back in the future for an additional sign
Line change.
or sign change.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first from Councilwoman Barch, second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion?
Did you keep in the ADA compliant?
Yeah, it's already in the conditions.
That wasn't part of condition 7, so did you strip the whole condition 7, or just? that
Well,
one?
the ADA is still there.
She just removed the maximum.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You just removed
Okay.
the one
I
part.
just removed the maximum.
Okay.
Do a roll call. Porter,
Aye.
McComber,
Aye.
Barch,
Aye.
Podeska,
All right,
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, welcome.
Okay,
Mayor can't wait for it.
I need a taxidermist. Let's see, adoption of fiscal year 2017-2018 final budget.
Mayor, City Council, this has not changed much in the last 3 months since you've seen it, but the two changes that did happen from the tentative budget till now are the part-time planner, contract planner, senior planner, and then also an increase in water rights so we can purchase more water rights this next fiscal year as well. So those are the two changes that did happen between now and then.
Perfect. This is a public hearing. Anybody here for comment on the fiscal budget 2017-2018? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Does anybody from the council have anything to add?
I would,
Yes?
I would just say, I wasn't on the council at the time, I was on the finance committee, and I just remember the council going through the budget, and it was just a horrid process even to watch and participate as the finance committee as well. So this is just brilliant, so wonderful, thank you.
And I just want to point out, the reason why it hasn't changed is because you did a good job 3 months ago.
Perfect. Councilman Podeska?
same here.
Councilwoman Barb?
Bring the old and
Thank you.
enjoying the new.
Just thank you.
Okay. Councilman Porter, would you like to add
Thank you.
thanks? Perfect. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the fiscal year 2017 to 2018, the final budget, Resolution R 1751, dated today.
We have first from Councilman Podeska.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Barch. Any further discussion on the motion? Do a roll call. Councilwoman Barch?
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, business items, fiscal year 2017 budget, financial quarterly update.
Mayor, City Council, this is our third quarter through March 31st with the comparison to last year. And as you can see by the staff report and the numbers, our numbers for revenues are significantly higher than they were last year at this same time. And on top of that, our overall general fund is over 3 million more than what we've expended so far this year in revenues. So we're doing pretty good, I think anyway. So we've been consistently conservative in our expenses, and our revenues considerably increase every year. So this is a great trend, and we hope it continues. Is there any questions concerning the analysis?
Questions from the council? Anybody want to give thanks?
I do have one comment.
I had a question, but go ahead.
Okay. Let Councilman Porter go first.
I meant to call you about this, but
Okay.
I've been busy today. The Treasury Department using more credit cards for payment, is that people using more credit cards?
People use credit cards
that's
a
the
lot
credit
more
card
now,
fees?
and it's credit card fees. But the good thing about that is when we do our allocations at the end of the year, the enterprise funds cover their portion of those fees, so it ends up
Okay.
being okay. It's just right now, it's paid for out of the Treasury Department
until the end of the
until the end of the year when I do the closing entry.
All right. I was just wondering if we needed to adjust our budgeting. But if-
Eventually,
but if
we
it-
might, but for right now, we're going to be okay.
Okay.
And I should have emailed this as well, it's not a question, but under where we describe general fund expenditures increased by X amount each quarter, there's some, I would say, boilerplate information that we use each time. I think it'd just be helpful, maybe list the top 5 contributors and what percentage of that total
That there
amount
is?
they contributed to. Because the second bullet where we say the increased benefit, it's due to the increase in benefits, et cetera, that's kind of there every time, so it'd be interesting to see.
Okay.
Of this 500 or 460,000, this contributed to X percent of it, just so we're seeing really what are those top items.
And that actually went down from the second quarter, if you looked at the second quarter as well, so,
Yeah.
the
So
expenses, so.
I just think from a high-level overview that
Okay,
just facilitates
awesome.
the review.
I just want to point out on the record too, it's not that we're overtaxing people, it's that we're very conservative in our
Expenses.
budgeting and in our expenses, and we're growing extensively. So I
We're
think.
not living on impact fees.
We're not living off of the fees, and we're covering our expenses, but it's because of our conservative nature, and it's how we do our books, how we just approved a budget for fiscal year 2017-18. We're probably going to have these same kinds of discussions because we come in so conservative, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anything else from the council? Okay. Thank you. 400 West Street dedication plat, resolution R17-52.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Some time ago, the city entered into an agreement with the adjacent landowners to acquire right-of-way for a future roadway on 400 West. And then several months ago, maybe not that long ago, the council decided to go ahead and pursue construction of that street. And so this is, I was about to say this is the first step, but actually it's the second step because we already got the culvert in place, which was a key thing to have in place before water started flowing in the canal. So now we're ready to acquire that right-of-way.
Any questions on it? Okay, I'll entertain.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll do the bid award at the same time.
Sure.
Kilgore?
Unless you have questions about it, I don't believe so. We're ready to build a road.
Sweet.
Okay,
I move that we approve business item 2 and 3 as listed with the bid award to Kilgore Contracting for $974,473.
Second.
we have a first from Councilman Porter, a second from Councilwoman Barch. Any further discussion? Roll call, Councilwoman Barch.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Comber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the interlocal agreement with Utah County for the 2017 election, Resolution R17-54.
We've discussed this several times. We would be looking for an approval.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the interlocal agreement with Utah County for the 2017 election, Resolution R17-54 dated today.
I have first from Councilman McComber.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Wilden. Any further discussion from the council? Roll call, Councilwoman Barch.
Aye.
Pedesca.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, we would like to request that we take no action on item 5 tonight.
Okay.
I move to table item number 5.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. We have an interlocal agreement with Eagle Mountain City for the Pony Express widening, Resolution R17-47.
Thank you for the edit on the fourth whereas, which was hangover from the last one. That's been corrected. Thank you. This basically lets us move forward with our Pony Express project. We met with Eagle Mountain, had a great conversation with them, shared with them, kind of the impact of the pass-through community, traffic, things of that nature. We think that this is ready for approval and would recommend such from the council.
Okay.
My only question is looking through it, like, the city is alternatively referenced as Saratoga and Saratoga Springs in different paragraphs. Is that normal?
We actually, we've had that happen in the past, and it doesn't affect.
Okay, that's fine. I just want, I don't know.
We'll recommend to
Right.
our attorney in future to make sure that it's more consistent.
We stopped adding to the affluent.
This was kind of cobbled together with all the different entities involved in it.
There was a
and
Saratoga, Utah, we had a problem.
if I had drafted it myself, it would not reference, have the multiple references.
That needs to go on the record. Arrogant attorney says, no, just kidding.
Aren't you the guy who spelled panorama wrong? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
There is one other typo, and that's just in Section A, Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain, intent to use a soft match instead of intend. It needs to be changed to intend. Not a big deal, but we ought to.
Or intent, choose.
Choose, exactly, but use it properly, please.
Okay, entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the interlocal agreement with Eagle Mountain City for the Pony Express for the intent of building the Pony Express widening, Resolution R17-47 dated today.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman McComber.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Barch. Any further discussion? Councilman Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Pedesca?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
You guys are getting unruly.
Mayor,
That was a Canadian approval.
Mayor, I did have a follow-up to a question I asked last time we looked at this. Mark, did we find out more about possible pedestrian tunnel along the canal path and things like that as we go through and do this widening?
I will have Jeremy follow up with them on this, so.
Because while we're
Now's the time to do it.
ripping things up, now's the time to do it. It'll cost us about a quarter of what it'll cost us to do it, an overpass, so.
It's for them too, so they should get involved. They should be.
Okay. Next on here, Fox Hollow, second MDA amendment.
I think they should.
Okay, so you've seen this before, and the applicant took into consideration your feedback. At this time, they're not requesting to move any of the commercial. They may come back with that later. And so they would like the commercial to be actually in the center. That doesn't necessarily require a change because the master development agreement says that the commercial has to be in the vicinity of neighborhood 4. And so moving it off of the detention basins and into the center would comply with the master development agreement. And then they still are asking to move 5 acres of the open space requirement from neighborhood 4 up to neighborhood 14. And in exchange for that request, they would like to reduce the density in neighborhood 4. So this is the proposal. I would reduce the density in neighborhood 4 and then reduce the number of lots in neighborhood 14 since the open space is moving. And these are the locations impacted by this request. And then this is the language in the table in the master development agreement related to that. So on this map, you do see 2 locations that are 2.5 acres. They said that there's language in there that would allow one of those areas to be, just for that 5 acre, it could be either two separate trailheads or a combined 5 acre trailhead, because there's additional open space open or adjacent to those areas. And then here's a concept. So we have 2 property owners here. What we're seeing is a concept for one of the property owners, and then a table of how those requirements would be met in the other phase regarding commercial and open space and things like that. One thing we haven't addressed is housing type. So this concept plan has single-family units on it. We're not seeing a concept for the remainder, and then they're asking for 9 units per acre, and this phase has about 6. So that does leave a question of whether or not that could be interpreted to mean that the unused density could be used in the remaining phase. However, because of the transfer of open space, it seems appropriate to discuss whether or not this should be single-family product or not. The purpose of having larger amounts of open space is if you have attached housing, that becomes common area. But if we're moving that out, we don't want to see attached housing and it be too crowded. So I added a condition here that all of the units within neighborhood 4 be single-family units. Of course, I would like further feedback from the council on that. Anyhow, staff is recommending approval with the findings and conditions listed in the staff report.
Okay. Councilwoman Barch?
Thank you. So we have lots of questions on setbacks also, if I'm not mistaken on this.
Yes. Okay. Did I miss that slide? Where did
Yeah, it wasn't there.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, it's in the next, that's,
Item 10.
we can discuss that with the next item.
Item 10.
We can't do it together because it's the same.
Sure, I'll go ahead and let's do it as well. So we also, the very next item is the neighborhood for concept plan, and it's the concept plan for this exact property. So it's this map, and it's included in here for just in the MD amendment for discussion purposes to aid in that discussion. And then the very next item is the concept plan, which, because it's a PUD, requires it's not a staff review, it requires Planning Commission City Council review. And so it's same site, and then it's the concept plan I just showed you, and then here's, we've just turned here, so Redwood's at the top of the page. The gas station is shown, we've talked about gas stations in the south, and this would probably not have the same kind of clamor that the last application had. However, we would need to see an actual application specific to the gas station because there's not enough detail here for review. And then one thing that the applicant is asking, the minimum lot size you're seeing here is 3,600 square feet, and then it goes up a bit from there. And so there's several variations that they're allowed to ask for in the PUD. There's some language in the Fox Hollow agreement that says that we can't prevent the allotted densities in that agreement. So however, to achieve those, they would need several variations. What they're asking for in neighborhood 4 is a front setback of 20 feet, a corner side setback of, oh, I have this wrong, it's 15, wait, no, it is 20 feet, okay, 20 feet.
For the corner.
Sides of 5 feet, and then rear setbacks of 15 feet. This went to Planning Commission last week. It was a quick turnaround between meetings, so I don't have those minutes available. The Planning Commission in general was concerned with the variations requested and asked for comparisons of nearby phases. There are 2 phases that have similar setbacks, and let me go back to the overall map and I'll point those out. So neighborhood 11 is right here. It's got a similar lot size and product. And the neighborhood 2, it's even smaller, and they share driveways, and so their setbacks are actually from the center of the driveway. So there's 2 phases in there that have been granted similar variations. And so this table talks about the setback variations. There are also variations requested for minimum lot size and minimum lot width and frontage. So they're asking for 20-foot front, 20-foot corner side, which this meets the code actually, the corner side, and then sides of 5 feet and rear of 15 feet. And so you can see these other 2 phases, one has 10, one has 20. They both have sides of 5 feet, and then one has a reduced corner side, and then they both have reduced fronts.
Awesome. So I went back and actually listened to the Planning Commission and watched the Planning Commission YouTube video because I was curious as to what they were concerned about. And I'm going to take a little bit different tact than they took. They were freaking out, and I'm going to use that term liberally, because they were, when you look at this, we have to compare it to the R3 PUD, what used to be the R3, the R10, now PUD. And that's not really a fair exchange because it is a PUD. We used to deal with PUDs all the time. We don't now, right? So I went back and I looked at it as if it were an MF10, which is going to yield roughly that 9 units per acre. If we do that on the setbacks, there are still some pretty big variations. So you end up with a minimum of a 5,000 square foot lot. They're asking for a 36. The side is the 20-25, where it's 20 for the house and 25 for the garage. They're asking for a 20. The sides are the same. The corner side is the same. The rear, yeah, the rear is 20, and they're asking for 15. So there's one of the changes also. The biggest variations are in the lot width. Within the MF10, it's actually a 50-foot width, and they're requesting 40. And I'll put an asterisk on that in a second. And then the lot frontage is 35, and it says they're doing, proposing 29. So my asterisk on those is because as I was going through, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I realize that this is a concept plan, but their lots are much smaller than even what they're proposing. There were a couple that had 23 and 25-foot frontages in there, which wouldn't be allowed. So they would have to go in and readjust that concept plan to make it fit with the code.
We could look at that further. Yeah, I don't have an answer for you right now. We'd have to look at that further.
So because we're not, the thing that's hard here is we're not actually changing their zone at all.
Right.
So when you go and we looked at the actual plat, what do we compare it to?
Right. It's really interesting where it's a PUD and then certain densities are granted for each neighborhood without specifying what rules apply. One of the things that the Planning Commission asked is if we compared it to a zone that would allow this density, what would it look like?
That's what I did.
And I didn't get a chance to do that.
That's what I just did.
Oh, that's what you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, on some of them, I don't have a problem. The 20-25 on the front, that's fairly standard. That's not that big of a deal. It still allows for a 20-foot driveway, which means they can still park a car in their driveway. Is that, by the way, is that from back of sidewalk or is that from center of road?
Well, the 20-foot driveway is from back of, or edge of right-of-way, so back of sidewalk.
Okay.
They're
So you do actually have room
public
to park a
streets.
vehicle, okay. And they're not going to be on the sidewalk, perfect. So I guess my biggest concern is just, I don't have a problem with the overall product. I think it's an appropriate product. I love that we're decreasing from approximately 15 units to the acre down to about 9 units to the acre. This is actually even less than that, so I really appreciate that. I do just have concerns on how we're actually going to evaluate the actual plat.
Well, there aren't standards in there, so we're really creating the standard. So if there's concern with the proposed setbacks, we should give them feedback on that so they could adjust it. I mean, not just the setbacks, but all of the variations. There's a more thorough list of everything Shelley talked about in the staff report, frontages and things like that. And so we don't have a standard where it's a PUD, and I think years ago when the PUD was created, it was intended to allow a lot of flexibility. However, where it's caused issues in the past, it is helpful to have criteria, and in this particular situation, we're writing, we're approving those criteria through variations.
As far as I can tell, there's really we require, for example, the 10% larger on the corner lots, and there's nothing in here about that.
Right, I did review their corner lots, and they're 10% larger than their proposed minimum. So we can still, yeah, but their proposed minimum is 3,600, and so all of their corner lots are 10% larger than that proposed minimum. And so generally what we've done with these variations is whatever their minimum ends up being, we still require corner lots to be 10% larger.
Than that. Okay, can you pull up the actual concept plan? So
Can I mention something? I didn't really maybe you got in the findings section of the report, Sarah, I think one rationale justifying variations, of course, would be the reduction of units and the reduced density, of course. So that's something that the council, I would say if it's not in the findings, you should include that in the findings as justification for any variations that you grant.
Variations that we grant, but for example, like lot 120 has a 25-foot frontage, which is even outside of their specs. But if we don't have anything written down.
Which one? Sorry.
Lot 120, it's in the cul-de-sac up on the top right.
It's so skinny.
Oh,
you can see it.
okay.
So teeny tiny.
It
and
goes right to it.
Yeah, I mean.
Well,
I
that
thought
one
it was a
is okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a trail, but then I thought.
No, that's the one next to it.
Yeah, but I know, but.
At least I'm hoping that the one next to it, because it doesn't have a lot number on there, so. And then just a general question about the layout, and I struggle with this. I understand wanting to have that main entrance and not to have any driveways off that main entrance, at least I assume that's the intent there. But at the same time, that creates, every single one of those lots then has two frontages, which then even further decreases your usability because your fence lines are set back, and it just seems awkward. And so I wondered if there's not some kind of a way to reconfigure that so that you don't have.
Which ones?
All the ones.
All the entry lots, so like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. Those all have bigger frontages because they're based on two roads like that. It just, I get wanting to have kind of a nicer entrance and not to have driveways off of that, but I'm concerned that that's creating hardships for those already very small lots. And then I had a question on the commercial. We keep talking about neighborhood commercial, but gas stations don't fit into neighborhood commercial.
They do get 5 acres of regional commercial.
So.
And then 15 acres of neighborhood commercial. So this would be
So this would be
regional.
within the regional commercial area?
Right.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because it's only ever labeled as
Commercial.
neighborhood commercial, so we want to make sure that we get that on there. Overall, I think it's a great plan. I think it's much better than what we were looking at before. I appreciate that. I think that the frontage of the 40 feet, I've looked at a bunch of different lots. Frontage of a 40-foot is a pretty small frontage. Most of the houses, I have the opportunity to look at lots and lots of house plans right now, and most of the houses that I see are 30-foot wide. So I'm not quite sure how you can get that onto, I mean, you can barely get that onto a 40-foot wide lot. And most lots that I see that have this type of housing have wider.
I'll tell you how they'll do it. They're gonna have a huge garage, and then that tucks in behind, and it looks really not nice.
Yeah, so anyway, I did go up to Fox Hollow today and look at those little tiny single-family homes over there by the school. And that's, very similar to what's going to happen here, so. Those are kind of my comments.
Getting in your feedback.
Yeah.
Podeska?
Some of the things that when I was looking over the packet over the weekend, number one, love the density reduction. I'm a little confused on the 9 per acre and the 5.79 per acre in the concept plan, where one's exactly how we're getting those two numbers, but someone will explain it to me. But with it being allowed, 3 times that, this is great. Have no trouble with transfer of the open space. Love the gas station.
This is the location.
The location.
Know somebody who wants to put a
Yes. Yeah.
Holiday oil.
Yeah.
Holiday oil.
There you go.
He was here the other day, not so good.
Yeah. Tell them it'll be fine. They won't have any trouble.
In fact, I just spoke to him coming up.
Residents will do, but we won't have a problem.
That comments I had were the the lot widths and the frontage figures, which is what Councilwoman Barch just brought up, but I love the fact that it's single-family units. And in the concept plan, we don't have an architectural view, but would it be similar to what we have in Legacy Farm?
If I could, I've got samples.
Okay.
I'm John with Richmond American Home, and I've got some samples of product that we have.
Just start down there, you're so fast.
Sure. I've got a couple of in Las Vegas and some of the other areas we built, those specific ones.
I'm hiding. Yeah, exactly.
They look wider than
They look wider than
40.
No, they're a 30 wide product.
Some of those.
just the front door. Excuse me.
Exactly what I said, you tucks in behind. Are you done? Councilman?
Yeah, and I think, yeah, that was my only concern, and that's been discussed. Other than that, I thought it was a pretty good layout, but really concentrated, but
It's like California.
the density is a nice compromise with getting a sellable product and keeping the density down to where citizens of Saratoga Springs won't be able to complain too much.
Okay. Councilman McComber?
So in terms of the ones that you have listed in the PowerPoint, Sarah, I'm okay with those setback reductions, not the best, but I get it. And then the 15 is probably my biggest concern. And you wouldn't get those on the double, just so you are aware. Councilwoman Barch is correct. It's considered double frontage.
Yes.
And so you probably don't want them anyway. You want a little more space. It makes it feel more open when you're driving into the neighborhood anyway. In terms of lot frontage, I would be hesitant to go less than 40 as well, just because of the nature of what the product is. We already are reducing to a 5 and 5 on each side of the house, so everything looks close.
Talking frontage or width, setback?
The width, sorry, the 40 lot width.
They're proposing 40 for the lot width,
Uh-huh.
but they want 20 frontage along the street instead of.
Yes, I want that
35 instead.
35 for that. So for me, the reason why is, and I know this might sound bad, it would almost, if you get too small, it's almost better to have the multifamily housing with all of the open space, because it doesn't look as dense. If we get so small, it'll look more dense. It'll look like Pasadena, California, the new developments, Irvine, some of the areas where they've done these really small lots in the homes. It looks more dense than an apartment or condos with all of the grass around it. It really does break the view corridors more. So I personally would like to see the 40 and 35. Did I say that correct now that time? Okay. And then, but with these other ones, I get it as working with you as part of the PUD, the grandfathered in PUD. We've gotten rid of PUDs in the city. In terms of the open space, the only way I would be okay with shifting open space is if we did not have such small frontages for me, because the whole point of that open space is to help with density. And if we're removing it, then now we've lost any sense of open space feel in the neighborhood. But so transferring that, and whether it, I wish we would have done a fee in lieu of instead of transferring, because we're 10 to 12 years out before that open space will ever be seen up on the west side. But I'm not going to make that a stickler this time. But I would have preferred a fee in lieu. So staff in the future, if we can make sure that we really push that with our developers.
I'm not sure we can do that with our development agreement. This one's a pretty complex.
I know that
resurrected development agreement, so I'm not sure that we could do that without.
But in the future, if we do, let's look at that.
In other scenarios, it might work very well.
And then I did talk to Mark, just for transparency purposes, just to make sure that the open space requirement isn't being transferred to an arbitrary different owner who's now all of a sudden stuck with more open space because these owners got the value, and now the other developer a landowner, now has to put in a park that they weren't, and you said that you were going to make sure that that is protected, because it's not fair to, it'd be like saying, hey, we're not going to, we don't have the open space, we're going to move it over here, and then all of a sudden we put a burden on another owner who wouldn't want that.
Property.
It's within the same family?
Excuse me, on this, the additional complication is this property is, neighborhood 4 is owned by two parties.
Right.
SCP Fox Hollow and Cardinal Land, and so the open space is being transferred to either Cardinal or SCP, so there's no other landowners associated.
I just wanted to make sure that that was the case, because it is such a complex with, like, one time there were 13 owners, it was, whatever it was. I remember, we've spent way too much time together.
Right.
So, again, I'm okay with that, I just wanted to make sure, and I just wanted that on the record, that I was clarifying that the ownership of that open space wasn't being transferred to a different owner. And I think that covers, was there any other things? And that covers them all. Thanks.
Okay, Councilman Wilden?
Similarly, appreciate the reduction in density, that's why I'm okay with it. We're not approving any of the variations tonight.
We're just giving concept.
For my.
Well, we're not, we're giving them concept feedback so they can prepare their preliminary plat, and then it'll be approved then.
Yeah, just make sure I was thinking correctly. And I think it's fair, most of the variations you're requesting make sense for the reduction in density. I would echo the sentiments about the 35, 40, whatever appropriate order those are stated in.
We could approve specific setbacks tonight if we wanted to add them to the MDA amendment, but we don't have to. That can be done later.
Let's do it when it's
Okay.
packet.
Later. Yeah, okay.
So then it's in the packet.
Yep. So, other than that, I think it's good, and appreciate you coming back.
Councilman Porter?
Well, I think we've beat this one to death, so I would just echo what's already been said. I think that I'm glad to see a reduction in density. I would like to see the single-family homes in this area, and it looks like you're working towards that. And so, I would say that, making sure that the lots are big enough that you can feasibly put something there is important. So, and I'm sure that's important to you as well. So, that I would agree with the 35, 40 thrown out there. But
I did think of one other thing, and the open space, sorry, I didn't mean to, we're done. So are we protected from them on the second phase of this, not putting in the extra density? Because you had that was a concern.
So I wanted to add, I recommend a condition that we didn't address it actually, and then I got a phone call today and from the HOA, and they had that question. Does that mean that all of this will be single family? And the way it's written right now, it doesn't mean that. And so because we're transferring open space, however, it seems like if the remaining phase were to be multifamily, that we would need to keep some of that open space. But if we're transferring that much open space, that it seems like the remaining phase should be single family. So I added that as a condition. It would have to be, the language would have to be added to the agreement.
Okay, so it is already as one of the conditions.
Well, I think we should add it. I have it typed in here as an addition.
Yeah, but so remember,
it's not in there now.
So we need to say, when we do the motion, with findings and conditions as added tonight as well.
Yeah, you would include a condition that all of the units be single-family based on this change.
And I think based on the fact that we're doing a reduction in open space.
Well, so here's the thing, you are making a legislative decision tonight. The next time it's here, it's going to be an administrative decision, which is simply an application of the code and whether or not the criteria is met. So some of these things that are really, sticking points for you, that you're saying, and I noticed you made some other comments, I'm only comfortable doing this if this happens. For those other items that are not covered by the code and maybe strictly an interpretation and application of the code issue, and you don't have the same discretion, you're going to want to cover that now and make that conditions of your approval, make those conditions of your approval.
All right. Well, understood, Attorney Mann.
So can I clarify with council then on those different variations? Just thumbs up or thumbs down, just so we know, on variation on the lot size down to 3,600? Okay. Front down to 20, sides down to 5, rear to 15, corners, not a variation, lot width of 40, frontage of 35. Okay. And then, I think those were the only ones, weren't they, Sarah?
That covers it.
Yeah, we can add that as a condition to the MDA amendment as well. You don't have to do that, but.
Well, that is our legislative.
But, right, as Kevin mentioned, if you add that to the MDA amendment, then when you are reviewing the preliminary plat, you've already set your regulations.
And also then when the next part of neighborhood 4 comes in, they still also have to abide by those.
Right.
Because it's part of that amendment.
So that covers the addition, yep.
Right.
Okay.
And it gives them protection so they know that they're going to get those variations as well.
Keep in mind too that this is an agreement, so there's two parties to an agreement. So you really should hear their opinion about those conditions at this point, because they would have to agree to sign the contract, of course.
Do you guys have anything you want to add?
No, I think we're fine with that. I think the intent is probably, some of the lots just showed smaller in the front. The intent is to have 40 feet at the front yard setback, so they probably would have to be 35 feet. And one thing I would add is, I had my engineer run through the lots, and actually 63% of the lots have a 20-foot backyard with our largest product. And then we've got product that gets, probably 4 feet smaller and stuff, and 81% had 18-foot backyard minimums. So, although we're asking for a lot,
You're not
it will
using
get
it all.
bigger.
It's not the majority, it's the exception, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
May I make another comment before we move on? I'm with Cardinal Land, and I can't speak for SCP Fox Hollow. They were going to be here. I'm not sure why they're not, but I would just like to have it as a condition of this and then get their feedback and then bring it back in, just because I can't speak for them since I'm not their landowner. And I don't want to, I don't know what.
We won't be able to make a motion then because they either sign it or don't sign it.
You can make that a condition now, but they can choose later not to sign it or to sign it.
Right, exactly.
That's their choice.
Here's the complexity associated with that.
Oh.
We're talking about your
see?
project.
Talking about you.
And conditions of.
Let me introduce you to Matt Scott.
You want to let him sit up here?
Come on up, Matt. Matt's with SCP Fox Hollow.
Matt, just to get you caught up, you've already agreed to everything, so we're good.
Yeah, see you later, Matt.
I'm very close to actually, passing the amendment and then we've given a lot of direction on the concept plan, but you're not really, your concept plan hasn't come in yet, is that correct?
That's right. Yep. And Sarah, do you want to recap or should I recap?
Yeah,
Or-
Matt,
Sarah do.
what we're discussing is up on the screen. We're discussing adding 2 conditions to the MDA amendment, and one of them being that all the units within neighborhood 4 be single family, and that's because we're moving reducing the open space. So if those were going to be multifamily units, we would want to keep some of that open space because multifamily units generally have common area around them, and if we eliminate so much of that, they'll be too crowded. And then the other condition we're talking about adding, based on the concept plan that we saw, was related to the variations. So minimum lot frontage of 35 feet, a minimum lot width of 40 feet, and then the setbacks you're seeing here. So a front of 20 feet, sides of 5 feet, rear of 15 feet, and then corner side of 20 feet. And the way this would be drafted, it would apply to yours unless you were to come back with something different.
But you'd have to go through an amendment again.
That would take townhomes off the table then.
The way that this is, the conditions we're talking about would take townhomes off the table. And so if you had been contemplating that for your phase, we would need to discuss it further.
We can reduce the open space this time.
Sorry, explain.
Because open space is for, when you have multifamily housing, you have more open space because you have shared space. Right now, you're asking for this whole project to reduce the amount of open space, moving it up to the west side, and then that would allow for townhomes to be all really, really close together without any shared open space. And so we wouldn't be able to, at least I'm not comfortable reducing that in this project, because unless it's all single family, then we can reduce that, what's required in the area.
So if we were to happen to come back later wanting to do townhomes, we could increase the open space potentially and have that type of a negotiation then?
It gets so
Technically.
sticky. Going down is a lot easier than going up, and then it's similar to a zone change.
And then the residents get really upset.
You have to go through all of this again.
So if you do want townhomes in that phase, it'd be best to propose it now and have it discussed now with the reductions so that everybody's clear about what's being proposed and nobody ends up feeling like they got misled.
I mean, when I'm looking at the design too, I mean, there's a cul-de-sac, so you're gonna put townhomes on the cul-de-sac with the single-family homes?
Well, no, on his part.
I know,
The other part.
but he owns the other part of the cul-de-sac, so he put townhomes and then it's.
I would suggest to the council,
Oh.
if, I would,
Take a 5-minute recess.
I would suggest that you make the motion tonight, and then similarly, like they came back again with another proposal, they could come back again and ask for reconsideration. Does that make sense? Because then this would allow them to move forward if Matt goes back and speaks with with the people involved with SCP Fox Hollow and they're comfortable with those conditions, they can move forward without having to come back. You simply table it, then they have to come back
Regardless.
both ways.
So
And
that gives them
also,
just one way.
one thing to consider too with any agreement, you want to be really careful that it's not a forced agreement, right? So in your findings, you'll need to articulate, and it is articulated indirectly, but more specifically that those conditions on the future plat, those additional conditions are required because of the additional consideration of the open space and things like that.
Excuse me, Kevin, could we put language in there that said, in the event that the developer decided to go townhomes, that the townhome area would have to have a 25% internal open space? Put that condition out there so that everybody understands clearly what has to be done to get a townhome designed and put up? Because obviously, I don't think that the whole area is going to be just townhomes. I think there's going to be a mix of products.
It's up to the council if you think you can craft something like that right now without really seeing a map of that plan.
My question on that
hard to
then would
articulate
be,
tonight.
do we then, because one of our questions that we had, right, was what happens to the difference between the 9 units to the acre and the 6 units to the acre? Does that transfer over, does it not transfer over? Do they have the ability to really increase the density?
For me, there's a lot of ifs out there.
Can you?
I haven't been able to calculate what the density would be. So I did calculate if they're using 6 and they're allowed 9, at least for this portion, that's 100 units they're not using. And so if those 100 units go to that other phase, I don't know what those numbers look like yet. I wasn't able to review that fast enough before the meeting.
I'm not okay with them just transferring all of the density into the other side. I'd rather have the density spread out, personally.
If I could, since these guys probably have a few minutes to talk, do you mind taking a few-minute break?
Sure. We can do our minutes.
We'll do a minutes.
If you want to do minutes, and then...
We have minutes.
Yeah.
We could even do closed session.
You could go into closed session, they can meet out in the lobby, and then,
Okay.
if you want to go into closed session.
Do you want a motion on the minutes?
That was already approved, Jeremy. Yeah,
I'll move that we approve the minutes with the submitted changes.
read your email.
Second.
First from Councilman Wilden, second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the minutes? Okay, Councilwoman Barch.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
There's need to go into closed session tonight.
I move that we move into closed session as outlined in the agenda.
First from Councilman McComber,
Second.
second from Councilman Wilden. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
So we're going to go into closed session if you want to go in the lobby, and then we'll meet back probably
Sarah?
about 10 minutes.
If you could go join them for a few minutes, perfect.
You're so close.
Yeah, we should be able to come up with something that will allow this amendment to go through and still regulate what happens.
Just kidding.